Hello, you're welcome to this presentation. I am Ernest Obeng Chuku from the University of Cape Coast Center for Coastal Management, and I will be presenting on the Participatory Regional Assessment of Women-Led Fisheries in West Africa, a study which took place from Senegal to Nigeria. The results from the study are as follows. First is the distribution of women-led shell fisheries on the coast of West Africa. Through this assessment, we are able to tell the regional scope of shell fisheries. Looking at the map here, it is clear that shell fisheries is distributed right from the west, from Senegal to Nigeria. You can see clearly that all along the coast of West Africa, there are several shell fisheries locations in the region. In every country, actually, there were at least 4 major locations where shell fisheries were found to be active. Now, some critical locations that we found in this study are the Salom Delta, which is in Senegal, the Tambi Wetlands, which is in Gambia, and the Densu Delta, which is found in Ghana. And these are all important waters with international protection. Now we look at the shellfish exploitation as we found to be the case across the region. Now from Senegal to Nigeria, it was also very evident that 60% or more women were involved in shell fisheries. By this, I mean that all the shellfishers that we engaged in each country, for each country, women constituted more than 60% of shellfishers. And this tells us the importance of shell fisheries in the food and livelihoods of women and their households along the coastal areas of Africa. And it was found that women formed 79% of those that exploited the shell fisheries of coastal and estuarine areas along the coast. Across the sub-region, what we found was that there appeared to be some species differentiation when it comes to gender. Now, when it comes to bivalves and gastropods, we found that almost all the nodes of the value chain were controlled fully by women. In areas where there was some men's involvement in these fisheries, it was found that these are places that usually exploit crustaceans, like the shrimps, and then cephalopods, which are more or less the squids and then the cuttlefish. Here we can see images of women from a location in Ghana, which is the Nakwa Lagoon. And typically you will find them being supported by their children during the harvesting of shellfish. This is another image from the Densu Delta in Ghana, where you see a vast land of shellfish or oysters on the bottom, and women would usually wade through the water and pick them into canoes and baskets, and oftentimes they are supported by their children. Another thing that was looked into was the occupation of shell fisheries, as to whether shell fisheries played a primary occupation role in the livelihoods of women, or they were secondary occupation. What we found was that as compared to men, women would usually engage in shell fisheries as their main occupation in these coastal communities. If you take countries like Senegal, Gambia, Ghana, you realize that the women in these areas engage in shell fisheries as their primary occupation, whereas men would usually engage in it as their primary occupation in only a few places, but mainly they do that as a secondary occupation. Now, when women are not doing their shellfish, what are they doing? What we found out is that as supplementary livelihoods, women were found to largely involved in petty trading, and some of them would be involved in farming and horticulture of vegetables, where they try to do backyard farming and all of that. Some of them would also be engaged in laundry services, where they go to people's homes and do laundry for them and get paid. Many others also are involved in fish processing and marketing in general, including the shellfish products that they harvest. And also in some areas, we found that wood cutting, mat weaving, fuelwood hewing, and trade of fuelwood was a supplementary livelihood to women who were involved in shellfisheries activities. Now, looking at the entire stretch of the West Africa region, we were able to estimate about 15,000 people involved in the shell fisheries. And looking at the value chain, it was also clear that almost everyone we talked to who were shellfishers consumed the fish, the shellfish, making it a very important nutrition component in their diet. Also, 78% were generally involved in harvesting. Retailing was also done by a large number of people. Processing was done by a lesser number of people, but also above 67% of the people we talked to. And some were involved in transportation, where they transport the shellfish that has been harvested into the market, and also sometimes to the homes where they are processed. There were other activities too that we found out that these women or shellfishers were involved in, including some open water aquaculture. When it comes to consumption of shellfish, what we realized was that almost all the people that we talked to were consuming either on a daily basis or a weekly basis. Also, another important stressor here, indicating that shellfish are very important in the meals of these coastal dwellers. And we also advanced to look at the species that are harvested. A total of 17 species of mollusks were found to be harvested. And when it comes to crustaceans, there were about 11 species. There were a few other species that we were not able to identify, but we put them into groupings of gastropods, crustaceans, and cephalopods. Now, here are the species that we found to be most important. And Crassostria tulipa, which is a mangrove oyster, came tops. The species was found to be in all 11 countries of this assessment, making it the most important and of economic value to shellfishers across the sub-region of West Africa. The second species there was the bloody cockle, which is Senegal senelis. And then there was the Tympanotonus fuscata, which is the periwinkles. We had the whelks also coming next. And then the Galacia paradoxa, which is a volta clam. The clam was found to be the most valuable species. Here are images of the species that I just talked about. So you can see the mangrove oysters, the black-beak cockles, the periwinkles, whelks, razor clams, freshwater clams, some shrimps also. When you go to Nigeria, where the crustacean fishery is more active, you find the shrimps and other crayfish. And then brown mussels were also found to be very critical to these shell fisheries. Now, exploitation methods in these communities, usually you will find women with their containers wading through water, barefooted on the ground, using their feet to identify where colonies of shellfish, mainly oysters, are, and then they harvest them. Often you'll find them transporting themselves in canoes. They row their own boats into the wetlands where they do their harvesting. In some areas, as found in the Gambia, the women are very conscious about the environment, so they know how to harvest sustainably using certain specialized equipment, like the one we have on the screen here, which is an axe that the women try to use to remove the oysters from the mangrove roots without damaging the mangroves. With the safety and health issues of the oysters, generally, we found that the shellfishers perceived oysters and shellfishes in general to be very safe, and they also believe that the methods that they use to process are very effective at killing any germs or pathogens that could cause them harm. Usually they would parboil it and then for shacking, and after shacking, they continue to boil again in stew or even fry it or use as kebabs and all that. So they believe that all of these processes contribute to killing germs that could harm them. Yes, and the challenges are many. Usually the women will go through very laborious processes to harvest the oil, the shellfish. The access is also is open. Anyone at all can go in, harvest how much they want, as many times as they want, which is not the best for conservation. Also, there are no specialized gears. If you can see on my right, this is a woman who is preparing to go to harvest shellfish. And what they will do is usually cut trouser trunks and wear it on their legs and tie them to protect their feet from the sharp edges of these shellfish whilst they harvest them. Also, there is the risk of climate and changing climates, where inconsistent rain patterns are really disturbing the harvesting. And what are the opportunities? There is the opportunity to actually scale up the kind of co-management arrangement that we have seen in the Densu Delta and in the Tambi area to different localities along the coast of West Africa. And this stands to really benefit the many women and many vulnerable women along the coast whose livelihood solely depends on these shellfish species. Also, there could be the development of modern technology for harvesting so that we don't have women going through all of these tedious processes to harvest their shellfish. One very important thing is also the approach of using ecosystem-based supplementary livelihoods, where aquaculture could be developed around these shellfishes by active research, and where the resource users themselves are involved in order to understand the ecology and dynamics of the environment, so that that can also help them better co-manage and improve the environment that the shellfish thrives in for better production. Thank you so much. And by this slide, I would like to just show you the extent of shellfish colonies that you can find on typical mangroves in West Africa. This video was captured from Gambia, and it is amazing the amount of oysters that can be harvested in one season. Thank you so much for joining this presentation. Bye-bye.